All right, so COVID-19 and autism is the topic of discussion today. We've received lots and lots of questions from caregivers and family members who are supporting an individual and a child with autism. And so I thought this would be a really great hot topics about answering those questions that you guys had. Here's a little bit of information. So for online therapy or online learning, we ask that it's finding a quiet place that you can learn while wearing earphones, have privacy away from other people in case that for our kids it might be triggering to hear some of these questions. Technology, if you are part of a Zoom or part of an online therapy, either privately or group, always test out your technology before. It is, even after the last few weeks, still very tricky, even for me. Be prepared, grab your notebook, grab a pen, have the information and items that you need handy, grab a water so that you can be comfortable. I always like to start things off a little bit funny. So this is a schedule that we had made with some community members. We all have the best intentions. We all have the best ideas, especially with our kids who are more sensitive. We're like, we're going to have this visual schedule. It's going to go off without a hitch. It's going to be fantastic. And the reality is that, our kids are waking up before us. We're tired. There's a grief that's gone along with COVID-19 and being in isolation, and our bodies are processing that. And so we're more tired in the morning. It's harder to find time because our kids are home with us all the time, who we adore, but it makes things much more challenging. These are some things like wake up and make a fancy coffee. That's something for self-care that I've been doing every day, which has been really great, or make a fancy tea. So here are some things that, if your schedule is looking a little bit more like this, where you're forgetting the schedule by 4:15, please have compassion and care for yourself. The expectation to be perfect needs to go right out the window right away, because not one of us, no matter how much of an expert or how awesome you are, it doesn't matter. Nobody's perfect, and especially right now with the increased changes and adaptation and grief, really, I want you to go through this presentation with a lens of compassion and care to yourselves and curiosity for your kiddos, because they are also having grief. They are also having big feelings, and it's hard for them as well. So these are some of the top issues that families have come towards our team. We have quite a large team here at Inspire. We support youth and families with unique challenges like autism, and we have lived experience as individuals in the community with neurodiversities or raising children with neurodiversities, and we are also have clinical expertise. So we're really, really fortunate to sit alongside community and learn together. And these are the issues, these are the top challenges that people have been bringing to us and our team, and we're grateful for that information. So stress and increased pressure, just really want to honor that. Challenging behaviors, we are as parents seeing an increased a number of challenging behaviors, lots of big emotions, lots of tears, lots of pushing the buttons. So if that's you, don't fret, you're not alone. It's all of us as caregivers that are seeing this stuff. Scheduling and filling time. We have our kids much more of the day, which is so great, but also filling up time can be really challenging. And so if that's also what you're struggling with or having a difficult time with, I just want to honor that that's okay, that all of us are kind of in the same boat together. So today's presentation, the main goal is answer the questions that you as parents and caregivers have been asking us and offer some solutions. We're going to be offering solutions that other families have said work for them. Does that mean it's going to work for you perfectly? Definitely not. You are going to be the judge of what's going to work best for you and how it's going to work best. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that you have the knowledge and that you're the best advocate and you're the best judge of what's going to work best for your family. I tried to be normal once, and it was the worst 2 minutes of my life. I say this in almost every presentation that I give. So I'm an individual who is neurodiverse. I have lots and lots of neurodiversities. I am not autistic. My perspective in this situation is that I have been a clinician or in social services for a number of years. I've been in social services for 21 years supporting community. I grew up as an individual with neurodiversities, still am. That's not ever going to change. And I'm a caregiver of 2 children who have neurodiversities and 2 children that do not. So my perspective is a variety of perspectives. but it's pretty hard to be neurodiverse in a world that's not made for us. And that's my perspective, is that things can be adapted, things can be shifted and changed. And ultimately, raising our kids is pretty hard because it's hard to be us as children. It's hard to be different in a world that's not made to be different. So this is a real conversation that I actually had with my children, trying to explain to them like what social distancing was, or physical distancing, which is really much more accurate. So I know social distancing is weird, but just try to think of it like a game of everyone outside is lava. So kind of a funny way of saying it, but it's true. It's really difficult for our kids to understand. You can't go near people. You can't touch people. We can't go to the park. We can't do all these things that we're used to doing every single day. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to talk a little bit about today, because a lot of the challenges that families have been bringing forward is, how do I even talk about this with my son, my daughter, my child? They're confused. I feel a little bit confused. And so really just honoring that through this process of chatting together today, that it's just really hard. The spectrum of sensitivity. So when we talk about autism, people talk about a spectrum, having higher needs or lower needs, higher skills or lower skills. Just because an individual might present as having less challenges does not mean that they are experiencing less challenges. So I really want to kind of call that out for what it is as well. As a person who's now much older, I have learned to adapt to my environment versus expecting my environment to adapt to me. And so, I might present as having less challenges, but I still live with challenges every day. The spectrum of sensitivity essentially describes that some people are more sensitive and some people are less sensitive. Some people need more connection, some people need less. Some people have a higher charge body, more energy, and some people have less. And so really we want to think about everything on the spectrum, and not just for our kids, but also for us. If we have other things going on, that's going to make us more sensitive as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I really love this diagram, this image, because it, in a really colorful way, talks about that fight, flight, freeze response. So when our children are feeling distressed, they're feeling scared, they're feeling upset, it comes out often in fight, which is the yelling, the screaming, the hitting, the throwing things. That's a survival technique. We all have this as an option as a survival technique. As we get older, we tend to do it a little bit less, but kids haven't had the opportunity, they haven't had as much time to learn those same things as we have. Same thing with flight. A lot of us have kids that just take off. We know this about them and we kind of watch for it, we prepare for it, we try to make sure that they're very safe, but this is a natural part of their brain. And it likely will always be a natural part of their brain. The freeze response is sometimes overlooked as being a challenge, but it's often the parent is like, hey, son, and the child looks completely blank. For those of us who have that survival technique, when we're feeling very stressed or scared, our mind is often thinking about something else that's much more calming. So let's say a child is really, really loving vehicles. They might think about vehicles or YouTube or something else instead of engaging in the present moment. And that's really common. And it can be a challenge or it can be a gift, depending on how you think about it. So when we're talking about that fight, flight, freeze response, we really want to have the lens of, it's a natural expression of feeling scared. It's a natural expression of feeling angry or upset. So the phases of escalation, we need this diagram with the help of community to describe a little bit where the windows of options, the windows of intervention and helping our kids, because all of us humans escalate. Every single person does. Again, it's a natural way of dealing with our environment. So in the diagram, you'll see something called rumbling, and that's that first little volcano there. And generally what you're seeing with your children are the repeating of mom, 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 or dad. Clenching of the teeth, clenching of the fists. They might look hot or be feeling hot. A lot of us, when we're in the rumbling phase, we also feel a heaviness on our chest, kind of a quicken of the breath. It feels pretty yucky, but it's not the full-blown panic, the full-blown expression of panic. So when we have the rumbling, when we notice in ourselves the rumbling, we have things that we do, like leave the room, distance ourselves from whatever is upsetting us, think about something different, connecting to somebody or something. So calling a friend, texting a friend, giving ourselves choices like, do I need to have a glass of water right now? Do I need to go outside? And these are the same things that we can do for our child or our children. So the rumbling phase, I really want you to think about what that looks like for yourself and what you do for yourself, because I guarantee in your life you will learn tons of skills to help your body with this natural way of being. And also, what things do your children do for themselves, or what can you help them with? The interesting piece is that with all of these years as adults that we've learned to manage ourselves, we also can share that knowledge with our children little bit by little bit. Now, no matter how perfect you are, and I believe you that you're pretty great, you can't miss the escalation. You can't prevent it every single time. It's just not humanly possible. So as a parent, I've got lots of skills. I know my children. I adore them. They're the loves of my life. Also, I'm not going to be able to get them regulated with my support every single time. There are going to be still times I'm going to do all the techniques that work for them. I'm going to sequence them. I'm going to do all these things. And I'll talk a little bit about what those are just right away. It's still not going to be perfect. They're still sometimes going to get upset and do the fight, flight, freeze, or the screaming and the yelling and getting upset. So this is important to understand, because we're going to be moving into the topics and the questions that you guys have asked about our really sensitive, really amazing children. And still, the screaming's coming, the upset's coming. A sensitive brain is always going to be sensitive. And it takes lots and lots of repetition and patience to teach our kids to learn a new way. And that's okay. That's okay. It's if we expect that, it's going to be much more comfortable for us to be like, yeah, okay, I'm on number 20 of teaching him this, but I need to get to number 70. So I got a ways to go. So sequencing essentially is when you have a child who's in some distress, they're in the rumbling phase, or they're even getting a little bit more than rumbling, they're on their way to a full escalation. I like to call that the volcano, for good reason. It makes sense, doesn't it? Imagine that your child is playing with their sibling in the living room, and they are starting to get excited. They're starting to get upset at about the situation. That the younger child has taken the toys of the older child, your child with autism. We can sequence them by essentially telling them a story of what's just happened and why they're upset. So, wow, you're really upset. I'm going to match the intensity of where they're at right now. Not get angry, but just match. Wow, you're so upset right now. Julia was playing cars with you, and you wanted to share the purple one, and she took the red one. Oh no, that's so frustrating. And so I'm trying to make sense of the jumbled up thoughts that he's having right now, because he's feeling so angry at Julia. And so essentially he's telling a story one piece by one piece to sort it out. And at the end piece, one of the most important pieces is, I want to help, or how can I help? And essentially offering a lifeline to that child who's going to be in a volcano, or who maybe is in a volcano. I also put distance in there, because if Julia's taken all his toys, he's going to be really mad at Julia, and he might hit, he might be screaming. He's got a lot of charge and a lot of emotion right now, because he's also having his own grief about not having his EAs, not going to school. He can't go to the park and play like he did every other day, almost in his whole year. So creating distance or space from the things that's upsetting him is going to be really safer for the other child, but also for him, because he's going to be feeling pretty crummy if he's going to hit her and then afterwards realize that he's just hit his sister. Our kids are generally so loving and so caring, impulsive, yes, but so genuinely loving and amazing kiddos. So in the moment, in that fight, flight, freeze response, angry, so angry. So if we can help them and sort them out and create some space and some safety, we're going to be happier and they're going to be happier. So Building the relationship, there's no quick fixes. A solid relationship in terms of lots and lots of positives makes when we're going to correct them a lot easier. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's so many things that lead to these sensitivities and these big behaviors that a lot of the families have been reaching out about. So understanding the why behind behavior. Every behavior has a reason, even if it doesn't make sense to us at that moment. And it might not even make sense to our children in the moment. So I really want you to have a curiosity about that. So there's going to be biological reasons for behavior. So if a child is hitting, for example, there might be a reason such as pain, medication. A little bit of it is going to be sensitivity or personality, right? That idea that some of us have a higher body charge, that we're more impulsive, and some of us are less impulsive and have a lower body charge. We need to run around less. And a lot of our kids need to run around a little bit more. I feel that, guys. Hunger, being tired, the natural energy level of that person, the being tired and being hungry. I think most of us have been both of those things at the same time and find it really difficult to stay calm. And our kids are the same way. They might not have the words or options or as many options as us to say, hey, caregiver, I'm feeling really hungry right now, or I'm feeling exhausted. Why do my eyes burn, right? That hurts. A lot of our kids do have medical issues and do have pain. Tons of our kids have constipation issues, and that can be excruciating for them. So if they've eaten something that's causing them upset, like lactose, for example, the pain of that is going to make them more likely to be aggressive. So being curious is going to really help us track that stuff. Social needs, again, that's that attachment. Some kids have a really high need for connection. Those are those kids that are like right up close to your body. They need lots of physical contact, really squishy hugs. And some kids are really happy to play by themselves in their room for hours and hours. I don't have those kids, but I heard that they exist. So confusion, some kids, they're in terms of communication differences or deficits, words are confusing. The same word can have tons of meanings. If we have a child who needs more visual information versus words, that can be really hard to receive information or instructions through talking. So in terms of attachment, we could have had trauma or past experiences in our life that make trusting other people or certain noises, etc., really scary for us. And then remember that scary, that fear leads to that fight, flight, freeze response, which is the really big, usually for our kids, aggression and throwing and hitting and kicking, sometimes self-harming and harming of us. Sensory information, most of the parents that I work with, including myself, who have a kid with autism, we also have some type of sensitivity. So being curious and honoring what our sensitivities are, the strengths of that, but also the challenges of that are really helpful. So for myself, I have a sensitivity to noise. And so when a lot of noises are going on at the same time, I find myself kind of more short-tempered. So knowing this about myself is really helpful. So when it gets loud, I know, I need to make it a little less loud. No problem. Really bright lights. A lot of our kids like it darker. That's calming for them. Is it too hot, too cold? If you have a child who's really sensitive to heat, it's finally getting warmer outside. And so making sure that they have lots of water and go in the shade, generally an hour, even earlier in the day when it's plus 10, plus 20, they start to perspire, they're sweating, and they can become more aggressive if they're really sensitive to heat and it's hot. Environmental cues and differences. Two people can experience the exact same situation differently. And I'll say in terms of being neurodiverse, I'm much more sensitive than the average person brain. And so our kids are too. I know a lot of the parents that I work with, like I said, we also have sensitivities. And so just throughout this process, I want you to really be curious about that. What are my sensitivities? How am I more sensitive about this word, this light, this food, this taste versus somebody else who's neurologically typical? So let's connect already. So connecting to our children and having lots of positive experiences buffers those challenges in a big, big way. Some things that you might not be aware of are that your facial expression, even that 1 second response before your intended facial expression comes out, For example, you walk into the living room and one of your children has dumped the potted plant all over your white rug, perhaps. Now, I might be surprised and have a facial expression like, oh no. I might intend to be like, oh no. But that immediate response can be interpreted as rejection. So a very sensitive person, especially with trauma in our history, which nobody gets out of life without trauma, essentially anything but a genuine, authentic happy is going to be interpreted as upset, rejection, not belonging. And so we need to be aware of that. Can we help that we have a, when there's mud all over the living room? No, we can't really help that. We can say, oh, wow, I'm so surprised that there is mud all over the living room. You know what? I got something for that. So we can use our words to match what we're thinking and help them process of that sequencing. Use your smile to let them know that you're happy to see them. I would suggest that anytime you're walking into a room, unless there's mud everywhere, or somebody's getting hurt, that you really consciously have a genuine, authentic smile, a happiness to connect with your kiddo. That really helps, again, create that positive connection. While they talk about worries, stop whatever you're doing and listen, be interested, but not overly interested. All right, you know what I'm talking about. Oh, tell me more. What was that? You know, so be present, be authentic, be curious. Listen to their opinion, even if it's hard. Wait until they're done to respond. Repeat what you heard them say to make sure that you understand. Some of our kids are very, very verbal, and they don't always have that same, I'll call it tact, okay? They just say the things. They're so honest. They're so sometimes brutal in what they say. And it's a wonderful gift to us if we can just be curious and almost like translate the information they're trying to share. So if they're saying, you know, some of our kids also have Tourette's, some of our kids, you know, it's really hard for them to say the things that are going on in their life, and they just blurt it all out. Sit back, be present. Okay, I'm ready for it. I'm ready. A lot of our kids also are low or nonverbal. They're still hearing us say, you're upset, I'm here, and I can help, and then being close by. They still see us, they still sense us, and that's enough. So essentially just cutting down the words, because they can get confusing and jumbled up. Reducing distractions, letting our kids come to us, talking slowly, gives them the time to respond of what we say. So there's a wonderful brain scan in regards to Temple Grandin's brain, essentially, versus a neurologically typical brain. And a lot of our kids are similar in that they take in much more of what they can see and less of what they can hear. Research says it's up to 10 times more what they can see. That's pretty cool. I mean, that's a lot of the reason why they're so amazing. Also, that means I gotta stop talking. I gotta use less words. And when I call for my son, I need a pause. Let his brain process that I've even called him. Also, if he is having some YouTube time, for example, I need to reduce the distractions. Can you please pause that? I need to talk to you. If I try to talk to him with his preferred thing, such as YouTube, I'm gonna have a really difficult time of connecting with him. This is this pausing idea, right? I'm going to pause between different demands or different things I'm asking of him so that he can actually process and hear me. Being available. There's going to be certain times that our kids are needing us to be available and there to connect with them. And I want you just to be curious right now. A lot of us, we already know, we already plan for it. My kiddo, it's first thing in the morning and definitely before bed. Before bed, needing lots and lots of cuddles and connection. It's very, very important for him. Starting the connection with, I was thinking about, is kind of makes them interested versus, I need you to do this thing. So being aware of the way that we're communicating, because when we're in survival, because lots of things are going on for us, like stress, it's sometimes the communication and how we're sharing information isn't as polished as it used to be, and that's okay. finding time to be together. If you're finding that you're really, really busy, so cooking all the meals and having your kids home all the time is making much less time for yourself, finding time where it's something to look forward to about being together. Lots of our kiddos really, really like videos. Lots of our kids like swings. Lots of our kids like slides. Many of the families, including my own, are doing, getting a trampoline, getting different things that we can have in our house or outside, so that we can do those activities together in a safe way. Because, you know, our kids can't go to the park right now. It's not safe for them. So what can we do in terms of problem solving? If you're looking for some funding, please reach out to me and I will help you to try to find some funding for your children to purchase those items. They're really necessary right now, and I really want to make sure that you have things in your house that's safe for you, so your kids can do those physical activities that they need and also do things together. Find out about their interests. Oh, they'll tell you. They'll tell you the police cars are their favorite. You don't have to guess. Our kids, that's one of the coolest things about them, is like there's no question what their favorite things are, because that's all we want to do all the time. And so do those things. Chalk, bubbles, cars, painting, art, sliding, racing, sliding, racing, sliding, racing. And find the joy that you can. Not all of their preferred activities and items are going to be your jam, and that's okay, but find the ones that really authentically speak to you that you can do. My son loves baking, and I also love baking, so we do that all the time. And the cleanup part, that's not my favorite, but I'll do it because the baking part he loves so much. So really, like, make a list of the things that you can, I'll call it tolerate in your house and outside your house that's safe. I love this thing, this document about love languages. So I want you to be curious right now about your own love language. Our kids often have a different love language than us, which makes things very interesting. But this is how we show love and how we want to receive love. And this is also a really great way of connecting with our kids. And so words of affirmation, for example, is that saying I love you, offering like, I really like this thing that you're doing. I really notice this. And I want you to also notice the column of things to avoid. A lot of these things are verbal, but they can also be shown by action. So be really curious about that and make a little plan. So one of my kiddos, he loves lots of physical touch, lots of that scratching, lots of that deep pressure. He needs it every day to feel his love. And so I make a plan every day, in the morning, in the afternoon, at bedtime, just for a few minutes. Being curious, that we watch and wonder. So letting him lead me, which again, in terms of internally feeling powerless and out of control, allows them to feel in control and safer, which is really, really great. Quality time, I have another child who really likes that one-on-one time. So, you know, watching a show that he picks, picking a snack that's his favorite and sharing that under a blanket together. That's also that physical touch, right? That's really, really important to him. We also have receiving gifts, and I'm not talking go buy me a PS4 game. I'm talking here's a stone, here's a flower, here's a little note that I wrote for you and I put it special. My daughter is so generous and so lovely, and she cut up like a used balloon and then shoved random scrap paper inside, and that was my Valentine's gift. And like, that's the kind of gifts I'm talking about. Acts of service, lots of us really enjoy that. So, you know, oh, you know, can I get you something? Can I get you a glass of water? That's that really like genuine kindness in action. So be curious about yourself, but also be curious about your children and how you guys can connect. So here's common scenarios and concerns during COVID-19. Let's go through some common questions and offer some key tips to help ourselves and our kiddos get through these very difficult times. So these are the questions that communities asked us, and we've been tracking, we've been listening, and essentially we're making this video especially for you guys to have some ideas on how to manage. How should I communicate with my child about COVID-19? I get this question all the time. So our children with autism, how do we talk about these germs? How do we give an explanation of why we can't have playtime at the park, why they can't have their friends over anymore, why grandma can't come over, while they're maybe seeing visuals of their grandparents or family members on Zoom. Why can't they just come over? Why is the neighborhood kids playing together at the park and I'm not allowed to? Because unfortunately, that's still happening in some of our neighborhoods, and it's really confusing. And our kids do so well with rules, black and white. Do this, not do this. And so when they're seeing something that goes the opposite of what we're saying, it just makes no sense. So for some of our kids, it can be where we ask them what they already know. See what they're thinking about. What are their worries? Just ask them to share with you. For one of my children, I say, you give me your worries and I will take them because I can take it. I can take it, no problem. Use visuals and social stories. We have in the manual that we're going to be sharing a whole bunch of social stories about specific issues. So, why can't I go to school? Why can't I go to the park? What is COVID? So the social stories have actually already been made. And so we're putting those together in a link so that you can just click and it'll pop up and you can read them with your kiddos. Provide context. So like the details. Some of our kids do really, really well with details. So for those of us who have those kids, maybe reading a social story and then talking about, we've learned a lot of things from other countries about these germs, this virus, and it hurt a lot of people. A lot of people have passed away. And so we're wanting to learn from that and be ultra safe, super safe. So that's going to be where some of our kids are at. If we have younger children or that's not where they're at, we can use more general information. Like we've learned lots of information from other countries and now we're just being very safe. We want to make sure everybody's well. Do not show your fear. A lot of us are feeling afraid, and that's a normal reaction to have. Offering perspective, lessen your own anxiety. So the perspective, again, of comparing us to other countries, we are learning from them. That is the truth. We are also doing a lot of things in terms of connecting to people who need help here. So we have all kinds of initiatives. Lots of us are donating computers to Computers for Kids. Lots of us are giving food to those who need. And that's a good perspective to have, is that we are all helping each other the best of our ability. And our ability is going to change from week to week, month to month. And that's okay. And do things for your own self-care. I'm sorry I said it, self-care, but it's really important right now. And knowing that it's natural to have anxiety about this. It's natural to have grief. And also your mask before their mask, right? We have to care for ourselves in addition to our children, but we can't forget ourselves and our needs. How can I best explain hand washing to my child with autism? This question so many times. It's really tricky. A lot of our kids, if you say, go wash your hands, they will turn on the tap, stick their hand underneath and turn off the tap, if you're even lucky. A lot of us are helping our kids do that stuff, and that's okay. So how can we describe why it's important to wash your hands? Focus on one step at a time. Show our kids what good hand washing is. And I don't mean one time. I mean lots of times. Okay, I'm sorry. It's going to be dozens of times. Make sure that you have everything that you need. So I always make sure that my soap is refilled because my kids seem to go through a lot of soap. And if it's empty, they're not going to tell me. I got to figure that out on my own. Experiment with types of soap. So my kids prefer a foamy soap. That's their favorites. The other type, I don't know, it's just too much. It takes too much work to wash off. And so have your kids tell you, I like a foamy. I like this. I like the blue one best. And then use that one instead. Reinforce the amazing job that they're doing. Wow, good scrubbing your nails. If your child becomes agitated during hand washing, give them a second to calm down before continuing. The important piece is you got to continue. If a child gets upset and then now we're not hand washing, it's done, it's fine. Use that when you need to use it. but know that the next time it's time to wash hands, they could potentially have learned that connection. Because our kids are kind of sticky. They learn the connection between, if I do this, this happens, especially if we don't want them to, then a little extra. Think about showing them a visual. We have an experiment. It's the pepper and salt experiment. So there's a bunch of different examples on YouTube, but one of my favorite examples is essentially just like grinding the pepper or pouring the pepper in some water in like a little dish and kind of playing with that. Like, this is what germs are like, and putting soap on our hands and touching to see what happens to the water. You can also use a toothpick. I've seen other experiments where you put the toothpick right in the soap, and like dish soap, for example, and then you put it in the water and it moves around. So kids really like that, to see, oh, that's why we use soap. And that's why we want to make sure that we're scrubbing in all the different parts. How can I explain the virus and germs to my child? Many kiddos want to know the why behind all the changes that they're experiencing, such as, why do I have to wash my hands this much? So the pepper and salt visual explaining germs is important for hand washing. There's also videos explaining germs to children, a video explaining the virus to children. My favorite one was essentially a Lego Justin Trudeau thanking the children for doing such a good job and helping with everybody. So my kids really liked that visual. A lot of the kids that we're supporting really enjoy that. It's kind of at their level. There are so many great books that were made by different therapists and service providers and helpers in the fields. And so being able to share whichever ones you think are going to be the best fit for your kid might be the best way. There's also some coloring books that are the same, so you can print those off if that works for you. Explaining a proper sneeze or cough, kind of showing them. How do you get your child to wear a mask? Well, first off, good luck to you. So you could look at a social story for a child to get used to the idea. Practice putting on the mask. It's going to take lots of repetitions. Find a comfortable material. Find a fabric that they like, maybe with their favorite character. So there's options for sure. For my family, the best thing is just not to take them to the store. You know, we are fortunate enough to be able to have two families. I co-parent, and so my son will be at his other parent's house while I'm going to the store, or just lots of places have click and collect where you just drive there and they put it in your trunk so that there's not really having to go to the store. Quarantine homeschooling. Oh, the questions I've got about homeschooling. It's not really homeschooling, it's crisis schooling, let's be honest. I still don't get it. Yeah, me either. Unfortunately, you go to a really shitty school now. It's kind of making light of the fact that, like, I'm not a professional educator in the same way that my son's teachers are. We don't have EA support here. We don't have respite here. We don't have different teachers teaching different classes. We have a couple hours a day trying to do measuring and baking and science experiments and things that will engage him. And if that's what you need to do, then do that. What feels manageable to you? So how do I prepare my child to go out and not to do anything that they used to do? Oh man, this is the question. Be truthful. It might take longer to go places. Be specific build specific time for your child outside. Get creative with activities, obstacle courses. We got a swing set. Lots of biking and walking around and like very specific things that we're doing together. There's also some social stories about not being able to go to the park. For a lot of our kids that love that sensory experience, if you have another option in your house or in your backyard, that's going to be your best bet, because they still physically need to do those things. My child really wants to play on the play structure. How can I explain why it's unsafe to do that right now? Read a social story consistently. So reading the social story one time is not going to cut it. We're going to have to read that like pretty consistently, pretty often for them to understand. Add these activities to your visual schedule. Come up with new fun activities like walking, biking, bringing a bag to collect things, have a dance party, make sure that you sound excited about them. If I'm like, yeah, I'm really sorry, we can't do any of the fun things, sorry guys, my son's gonna feel it. He's gonna feel really bummed out. I'm kind of feeling bummed out, to be honest, but we do have an option to have biking parties. You know, I'm really lucky to have 3 kids, and so all 4 of us doing really great things together feels pretty great. Especially, you know, okay, we're gonna go to this one place and we're gonna collect 3 rocks, and then we're gonna bring those rocks back to our garden. If I sound excited, he's gonna be excited. How do I explain to my child not to touch other people and things, like at the park, at the store, etc.? Oh, it's really hard, you guys. For me, it's about prevention. So if I can prevent my child from touching the things by not going, it's going to be much better. So I don't even walk by the park anymore because it's just too tempting. It's just too much for him, and he's not quite there yet. Come up with new ways to greet people. Waves, air high fives, sticking out your tongue, maybe a flag or like a little sign. Could be all kinds of stuff. Build on the concepts that they've learned in their school and daycare. Explain social distancing in fun ways. So the Wiggles have a great song about that, about you know, being isolated or that physical distancing. Here's the reality: isolation without kids. I know it doesn't sound great. Everybody's like, I'm taking on a new hobby. I did renos. I just slept in all day. The reality of isolation with kids, especially while we're trying to work, is like more like the bottom. It just looks like chaos and fatigue. There's some fighting going on there, children bumping each other. So why might this be harder for my child than other people or other people's child? So acknowledge flexibility with your child's love language. Keep the routine as much as you can. I know it's hard. Having a visual schedule at my house has been a lifesaver for my son. All 3 of my kids check it every day. What part are we at now, Mom? What part are we at now? And I'm excited about that visual schedule. And I, like, when my kids are doing homework here, I'm sitting with them. You know, when my kids are doing their screen time, I am making their lunch. I'm cleaning the kitchen because we know we got to clean that kitchen 15 times a day. Offer choices. Generally, I'm going to be offering 2 choices to my children, and both are awesome. I think both of them they're going to like and I'm going to like. So are you going to watch this Netflix movie, or are you going to be doing this craft with me? Both of them they like. Remind them of their routine when they come back. So if you are co-parenting, you know, reminding them of their routine, or when they're going from activity to activity, bring your visual schedule. It's fantastic. I would encourage you to reach out to your school and ask if they have the visual schedule they used at the school, same color, same everything. Ask if you can pick it up. That's what we did at our house, and it's been really, really wonderful. Do online games. There is no way that my son is doing 2 hours of writing a day. That is not happening. First off, he wasn't doing that at school. He's not going to do that at home. But we can do online games about math. We can do writing games. We can do all kinds of things. Visual timer is also really great. We just got one of those cheap Apple ones. They're fantastic, and it has a buzzer. You can also put it on the iPad or other ways like that. I limit my kids' social media, all the news. I don't want them watching any of it. It's really unpredictable. You never know what you're going to see. And so even news radio, I will generally have my earphones on or be listening to it while they're asleep, because they're going to be, you know, really sensitive to what they're hearing. Same thing with talking to my friends, or my, you know, I'm still volunteering a couple of hours a week, like doing this recording, and really making sure that I'm doing it away from my children. My child has their favorite foods and products, and during these hard times, not everything is available. What do I do? My child only eats pretzels. What am I going to do? First off, you guys have to plan that, Mom, Dad, Grandma, any kind of caregiver. Honestly, this is the time to buy 2 or 3 at a time. If your kid only eats 1 brand of peanut butter, don't you run out. Don't do it. If you get the no-name version, you know what's going to happen. Talk about a plan if they're not available. So for example, if you run out of flour and your child loves waffles, you know what? I'm really sorry that there's no waffles today, but we can have a peanut butter sandwich. We can have, and then listing other things that they can have instead. that you know that it's not the worst thing. They like those things as well. And this is also a time where maybe our kid's going to try or consider, I'll say this, consider trying something new. So, you know, straight pretzels, I'm going to go wild and crazy like that, but there are some things that our kids might try. And I've actually been shocked. I have a snack bin on the table that has the variety of snacks like oranges, bananas, some apple sauce pouches. My child tried a new flavor of applesauce pouch. I don't want to brag, but it was a big day for us. What can I do to help my child when they are missing their peers? This is heartbreaking. My kids miss their friends so much, and they ask me every day. Honestly, validate. You know what? I'm really sorry that you're missing your friends. I'm also really missing my friends. What can we do? And ask them, what can we do? Do you want to have a video chat with a bunch? Do you want to talk with Jennifer for, you know, to show them your artwork? Who can they talk to? Is it the EA? Is it the school resource? Do you have music therapy as an option? What can you do where they can still interact with each other? And just hold them and hug them and just say, like, this is hard. This is hard, and I know you're missing your friends, and you're a really good friend to want to spend time with them. But right now, the best thing we can do is be here. Social story, use technology, try different apps. So there's tons of ways that you can do coloring and connect with your friends through gaming and stuff. And that is second best, I guess, to in person, but it's pretty good for our older teens and older kiddos. Social interaction through gaming is pretty great and is being used at very large rates. What are some alternatives to my child having so much screen time? Oh, mercy. Make a prop that connects to their favorite movie. So put on a planetarium show, check out museum events, explore with different videos. So this is like, if your kiddo is obsessed with games and that's all they want to do, I get it. Screen time is awesome. We're doing it right now. But what else can we do that's not never have screen time? It's an alternative. It's another option. And so there's tons of great learning options. We have a toolkit that we have, I think, over 30 options that are online. And they're like games that are learning, and they're planetarium, and they're museums, and tons of different stuff. Or explore those things together. You pick one, I pick one. You pick one, I pick one. So here's a bunch of other resources. We also have, like I said, an entire manual of resources like links, and we made a special manual specifically with the community called COVID and Autism, and it's all about supporting our children and our youth who have autism and just connecting with them and helping them understand this isn't forever. It's not about us, and I'm sorry it's affecting you so much, but there's things that we can do to make it better. And that idea of working together and being curious about it together. What can we do? These are some options. So thank you guys so much for learning with me today. I will put all the information on our website so that you can download everything. People will forget what you did and they'll forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And this goes for our kids as well. I feel thankful that you joined me today, and I'm feeling really thankful that our kids have you guys, that our kids have us, that we are learning and we're being patient as possible, and we're really prioritizing them and their needs, even though it's a very difficult time. So just kudos to you, and give yourself a pat on the back. Have compassion and care for yourself as much as you can, and I know it's hard. Thank you so much. Please follow us on all the places. We've got Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We've got tons and tons of events on inspirecommunityoutreach.ca. I am really looking forward to connecting to you. We have a really great option to do one-on-one supports with families if that feels like the best fit for you. And again, please reach out to us by email, on our social media accounts, or otherwise. we're going to be around. We're going to be supporting you guys throughout this isolation, and we're going to be here creating new resources, printouts, videos, especially for you, with you. And I'll look forward to touching base.